The most dangerous fat in your body is the fat you can't see. It's not the fat you can pinch, but the fat that's silently wrapping itself around your vital organs, actively fueling inflammation and disease from the inside out. Most people try to lose this fat the wrong way, through punishment and deprivation. 99% of diets fail because they ignore the one biological truth you're about to learn, and by ignoring it, you risk allowing this hidden danger to quietly disrupt your health for decades. Hidden danger. Let us begin by changing our entire understanding of what body fat is and what it does. For generations, we have been taught to think of fat as a passive, inert substance. We've seen it as nothing more than a storage depot for excess calories, a sign of overindulgence that affects our appearance, and the number on a scale. But science has now pulled back the curtain on this profound misconception, revealing a truth that is both sobering and empowering. Body fat, and specifically the type known as visceral fat, is not passive at all. It is a dynamic, active, and highly influential endocrine organ. It is, in essence, a gland that is constantly communicating with the rest of your body, sending out signals that can either support health or drive disease. This single shift in perspective is the key to truly understanding how to manage it. First, we must distinguish between the two primary types of fat. There is subcutaneous fat, which is the layer that lies just beneath our skin. This is the fat you can pinch. While having excessive amounts of it is not ideal, it is, in a biological sense, far less dangerous. Then there is visceral fat. The word viscera refers to your internal organs. This is the fat that you cannot see or pinch. It is stored deep within the abdominal cavity, where it pads the spaces between your vital organs like the liver, the pancreas, and the intestines. A small amount is normal and protective, but when it accumulates in excess, it ceases to be a protective cushion and becomes a hazardous factory for disease. Its location is what makes it so sinister. Because it is intertwined with our organs, the biochemicals it produces are released directly into our portal circulation, the superhighway of blood that flows directly to the liver, creating a cascade of metabolic problems. This visceral fat organ is a major disruptor of your body's 5 health defense systems. It is profoundly inflammatory. A healthy fat cell is like a calm, quiet neighbor, but an overstuffed visceral fat cell is like a frantic, distressed neighbor that is constantly setting off alarms. These alarms come in the form of inflammatory proteins called cytokines. These are signals that shout emergency throughout the body, creating a state of chronic, low-grade inflammation. This inflammation is not like the acute inflammation of a sprained ankle. It's a silent, smoldering fire that, over time, damages our blood vessels, disrupts our immune system's ability to function properly, and even harms our DNA's integrity. It actively weakens the very systems designed to protect us. This is why visceral fat isn't just a cosmetic issue. It's a primary driver of most of the chronic diseases of our time, from heart disease and type 2 diabetes to certain cancers and even cognitive decline. So the question is not merely how do I lose weight? The more intelligent question is how do I reduce the harmful activity of this hidden endocrine organ? This is where empowerment begins. The answer is not found in crash diets or punishing exercise regimes that are unsustainable and often backfire. The answer lies in understanding the language of this organ, the hormonal and inflammatory signals it sends out, and then using the power of food to send back a different set of signals. We can choose foods that contain natural bioactive compounds that speak a language of anti-inflammation. We can eat to calm the fire. We can eat to restore the hormonal balance that this rogue organ has disrupted. We can eat to support our gut microbiome, which is intimately involved in how our body stores and manages fat. This is not about a war on fat. It is about restoring metabolic harmony. It's about taking the science of this hidden danger and using it to formulate a new, intelligent, and sustainable strategy for lifelong health. Active organ. Let's dive deeper into this revolutionary concept, fat as an active organ. Imagine a large corporation with many different departments. When the corporation is healthy and well managed, all the departments communicate effectively and work toward a common goal. This is your body in a state of health. Now imagine a rogue department has formed within this corporation. This department has its own agenda. It starts broadcasting disruptive memos, creating chaos, confusing the other departments, and slowly grinding the entire operation to a halt. This rogue department is excess visceral fat. It functions as an endocrine organ that has gone rogue, pumping out a blizzard of signals that systematically dismantle your health from the inside. Understanding this is not meant to create fear, but to give you a target. You are not fighting your body. You are working to decommission this rogue factory. The main products manufactured by this factory are inflammatory cytokines. These are molecules like TNF-alpha and interleukin-6. In a healthy body, these cytokines play a role in short-term immune responses. They help fight off an infection, and then they quiet down. But when visceral fat cells become enlarged and overstuffed, they become metabolically stressed. They are essentially suffocating from a lack of adequate blood flow. This hypoxic state triggers a constant, relentless release of these inflammatory signals. This isn't a short-term alarm, it's a continuous wailing siren that never shuts off. This constant inflammatory state is at the very heart of why visceral fat is so dangerous. It directly attacks the lining of our blood vessels, a process that initiates atherosclerosis, the hardening of the arteries. It interferes with our immune system, confusing our defenders and making them less effective at their job of surveillance, including finding and destroying cancerous cells. It contributes to insulin resistance, forcing our pancreas to work overtime until it eventually burns out. This inflammatory state creates a vicious cycle. The inflammation itself makes it harder for the body to manage blood sugar effectively, which in turn leads to more fat storage, particularly in the visceral area. More visceral fat means more inflammation, which leads to more insulin resistance, which leads to more fat storage. And around it goes. This is why people can feel so stuck. They are caught in a powerful biological loop that has very little to do with willpower. Trying to fight this cycle with caloric restriction alone is like trying to fix a faulty dam with a bucket. You might make temporary progress, but you are not addressing the fundamental structural problem. The only way to truly break the cycle is to change the biochemical conversation. We need to introduce signals that tell the body to cool the inflammation and to restore normal hormonal function. This is where the science of food becomes our greatest ally. We can strategically choose foods that contain bioactives with potent anti-inflammatory properties. These are not drugs, but they act like them in a gentle pleiotropic way, meaning they have multiple beneficial effects. Compounds from berries can help to block the production of inflammatory cytokines. Molecules from green tea can help to reduce oxidative stress. Omega-3 fatty acids from fish can be converted by the body into specialized pro-resolving mediators, which are chemicals that literally resolve inflammation and signal the all clear to the immune system. When you consume these foods, you are not just providing nutrients, you are sending a powerful memo back to that rogue fat organ. You are saying, cease production, stand down, harmony is being restored. This changes the entire dynamic from one of a desperate battle to one of intelligent, strategic negotiation with your own biology. It puts you back in the driver's seat. Hormonal disruption. Now let's get very specific about the disruptive language being spoken by this active fat organ. Two of the most important hormonal words in its vocabulary are leptin and adiponectin. Understanding how visceral fat corrupts the messages of these two critical hormones is the key to understanding why losing visceral fat can feel like an impossible uphill battle. It's a battle that is being rigged at a hormonal level, and only by understanding the rules can you begin to change the game. First, let's talk about leptin. Leptin is known as the satiety hormone. It is produced by your fat cells and travels to your brain, specifically to the hypothalamus, where it delivers a simple message. We're full. We have enough energy stored. You can stop eating now. In a healthy, balanced system, this is a beautiful feedback loop. You eat, your fat cells release leptin, your brain gets the message, and your appetite diminishes. But here's the great paradox of excess visceral fat. Because you have more fat cells, you are producing vastly more leptin. You are practically screaming the "I'm full" message at your brain. So why does this lead to overeating and not the opposite? The reason is a phenomenon called leptin resistance. The constant, overwhelming flood of leptin from the visceral fat organ is like having a fire alarm that never stops blaring. Eventually, the people in the building, in this case the receptors in your brain, tune it out. They become deaf to the signal. The brain no longer hears the message of satiety. So despite having more than enough energy stored, the brain thinks the body is starving. And what does it do when it thinks it's starving? It ramps up your appetite, creates powerful cravings for high-calorie, sugary foods, and slows down your metabolism to conserve energy. This is a cruel biological trap. You feel hungrier, even though you have excess energy stores, because the communication line between your fat and your brain has been severed by this constant hormonal shouting. Now let's turn to the second hormone, adiponectin. If leptin is the hormone that visceral fat overproduces, adiponectin is the crucial hormone that it suppresses. Healthy fat cells produce plenty of adiponectin, which is a wonderfully beneficial hormone. It is highly anti-inflammatory. It increases your body's sensitivity to insulin, helping your cells to properly absorb glucose from your blood. It helps to protect the lining of your blood vessels. It is, in every sense, a guardian of metabolic health. But as visceral fat cells become enlarged and inflamed, they dramatically reduce their production of adiponectin. As levels of this protective hormone plummet, the consequences are severe. Your insulin sensitivity drops, paving the way for type 2 diabetes. The inflammation in your blood vessels goes unchecked, accelerating heart disease. Your body loses one of its key natural defenses against metabolic chaos. So now you have the full picture of this hormonal disruption. Leptin resistance is making you feel constantly hungry and driving you to eat more, while low adiponectin levels are making your body less efficient at handling the food you do eat, leading to more fat storage and more inflammation. It is the perfect storm, a self-perpetuating cycle of dysfunction. Trying to use sheer willpower to overcome these powerful hormonal drives is almost destined to fail. The solution is not to fight harder, but to fight smarter. We need to introduce foods and lifestyle changes that help to resensitize the brain to leptin and naturally boost the body's production of adiponectin. And the good news is, the science shows us exactly how to do this. We can choose foods that lower the inflammation that causes leptin resistance. We can eat specific types of fats and fibers that have been shown to increase adiponectin levels. We can use food not just as calories, but as hormonal therapy, gently nudging our system back towards balance and clarity. Bioactive solutions. Now that we have established that visceral fat is an active rogue endocrine organ that disrupts our health through inflammation and hormonal chaos, we can turn to the solution. The solution is not a diet of deprivation, but a strategy of addition. It's about intentionally adding foods rich in specific bioactive compounds that can directly counteract the harmful signals sent by visceral fat. This is food intelligence. This is using food as biological information to restore metabolic harmony. Let's explore some of the most powerful food-based tools we have at our disposal based on rigorous scientific evidence. First, let us celebrate the power of anthocyanins, the compounds that give berries like blueberries, blackberries, and black raspberries their deep, rich purple, blue, red colors. These molecules are more than just pigments. They are potent anti-inflammatory agents. They work at a genetic level to turn down the production of those inflammatory cytokines like TNF-alpha that are being churned out by visceral fat. Eating a handful of berries is like sending a team of diplomats to cool down a heated, chaotic negotiation. Furthermore, studies have shown that anthocyanins can improve insulin sensitivity, helping your body to better manage blood sugar. They directly combat the negative effects of low adiponectin. By adding a simple cup of mixed berries to your day, on your oatmeal, in a smoothie, or just on their own, you are delivering a targeted dose of anti-inflammatory medicine that goes straight to the root of the problem. Next, we turn to the power of green tea and its most famous bioactive, EGCG, epigallocatechin 3-gallate. Green tea is a metabolic powerhouse. EGCG has been shown to have a mild thermogenic effect, meaning it can slightly increase the rate at which your body burns calories. But its real magic lies elsewhere. It helps to reduce the inflammation that drives leptin resistance, potentially making it easier for your brain to finally hear the "I'm full" signal. It also has anti-angiogenic properties, which are relevant because expanding fat tissue needs to grow a new blood supply, just like a tumor does. EGCG can help to inhibit this process, making it harder for fat tissue to expand. A few cups of unsweetened green tea a day can be a simple, powerful ritual to support metabolic rebalancing. We must also talk about the critical role of fiber, especially soluble fiber, which is found in foods like oats, barley, beans, lentils, apples, and psyllium husks. When soluble fiber enters your digestive system, it forms a gel-like substance. This gel does several remarkable things. First, it physically slows down the absorption of sugar into your bloodstream, which prevents the sharp blood sugar spikes that lead to insulin release and fat storage. This gives your body a chance to manage its energy gracefully. Second, and perhaps more importantly, this soluble fiber is not for you. It is food for your gut microbiome. And when your beneficial gut bacteria feast on this fiber, they produce magical compounds called short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. Butyrate is profoundly anti-inflammatory throughout the body, and it has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity and even influence gene expression related to fat metabolism. So by eating fiber-rich foods, you are nourishing an internal army that fights inflammation and metabolic dysfunction on your behalf. It's an incredibly powerful indirect strategy for addressing the problem of visceral fat. This is about making a conscious choice to add, not just subtract. Adding these powerful bioactive foods is how you start to win the conversation with your own body. The microbiome reset. The connection between our gut and our fat is one of the most exciting and important areas of medical research today. For too long, we thought of the digestive system as a simple tube for processing food. We now understand that the community of trillions of bacteria living within it, our microbiome, is a central command center for our overall health, and it is intimately linked to the problem of visceral fat. There is a powerful, bi-directional communication highway between your gut and your fat tissue, often called the gut-fat axis. When your microbiome is healthy and diverse, it sends signals that promote metabolic balance. When it is out of balance, a state called dysbiosis, it sends signals that can actively promote the accumulation of visceral fat and systemic inflammation. Here's how it works. A diet high in processed foods, sugar, and unhealthy fats tends to promote the growth of inflammatory gut bacteria. These bacteria can damage the integrity of your gut lining, which is supposed to be a very strong, tight barrier. When this barrier becomes compromised, it develops microscopic gaps, a condition often referred to as leaky gut. This allows bacterial components, such as a molecule called lipopolysaccharide or LPS, to leak out of the gut and into your bloodstream. Your immune system recognizes LPS as a sign of a bacterial invasion, and it mounts a powerful inflammatory response. This low-grade systemic inflammation triggered by a leaky gut is a major contributing factor to the development of insulin resistance and the storage of fat in the visceral area. It is yet another vicious cycle. The wrong foods disrupt the gut. The disrupted gut causes inflammation, and that inflammation tells the body to store more visceral fat. So, a crucial part of addressing visceral fat is to go to the source and heal the gut. This means undertaking a microbiome reset, which again is a strategy of addition, not just subtraction. The first step is to starve the bad guys by reducing your intake of ultra-processed foods and sugar that they love to eat. The second and more important step is to actively nourish the good guys, the beneficial bacteria that will restore balance and heal your gut lining. You do this by loading up on prebiotic fiber, the specific type of fiber we discussed earlier from sources like Jerusalem artichokes, chicory root, garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, and beans. These are the preferred foods for beneficial bacteria like bifidobacterium and lactobacilli. In addition to prebiotics, which are the fertilizer, you can also add probiotics, which are the seeds. These are live beneficial bacteria found in naturally fermented foods. These are not the sugary commercial yogurts, but rather foods like authentic kimchi, sauerkraut, kefir, and miso. These foods deliver a direct payload of beneficial microbes to your gut, helping to crowd out the troublemakers and restore a healthy, diverse ecosystem. A healthy microbiome produces anti-inflammatory short-chain fatty acids. It helps to regulate your appetite. It strengthens your gut barrier, stopping the flow of inflammatory molecules like LPS into your system. By focusing on healing your gut, you are performing a foundational act of health defense. You are calming the fire at one of its primary sources. You are taking a direct science-backed action to break one of the most insidious cycles that drives the accumulation of dangerous visceral fat, paving the way for your body to finally find its way back to a state of natural, healthy equilibrium. The journey to releasing dangerous visceral fat is not a war against your body. It is a profound act of making peace with it. It is about moving beyond the noise of fad diets and the guilt of the bathroom scale and into a deeper understanding of your own biology. It is about realizing that your body is not broken. It is simply responding to the signals it has been given. By consciously choosing to provide new signals, signals of anti-inflammation, hormonal balance, and gut health, you give your body the tools it needs to heal itself. This is not a quick fix, but a gentle, steady, and sustainable return to harmony. There is a deep and quiet strength in this knowledge, a sense of empowerment that comes from knowing you are not fighting yourself, but rather nourishing yourself back to wholeness, one delicious, intelligent meal at a time. Hearing visceral fat described as an active organ that has gone rogue completely changed my understanding. I always saw it as a failure of willpower, not as a biological process I could influence with food. The idea of decommissioning the factory is so empowering. Which part of this made you look at your own health in a new light?